Hello, my name is Brian Friedland, and welcome to another episode of Inside the GSC. Today I am interviewing West Alabama's interim head athletic trainer, Joni Maddox. Joni has been an athletic trainer at West Alabama for 11 years, primarily working with men's basketball, and is also an assistant professor and clinical education coordinator for the undergraduate and graduate athletic training programs. She will talk about the behind the scenes of athletic training, the importance of National Athletic Training Month, and more. All right, on another episode of Inside the GSC, today I'm joined by the jack of all trades in West Alabama, Joni Maddox. She's the interim head athletic trainer, an assistant professor, and the clinical education coordinator there. Joni, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And so we'll start diving into this one. So I know we're getting closer. It's the spring now, so we're getting closer to the end of the athletic school year, I guess you could say. And so just wanted to check in how that's been going for you. And also, it's National Athletic Training Month. So how's that been for you?
It's been great. We are very busy. Obviously, baseball, softball, tennis, track. Everybody's hitting that mid-season point, full swing. Basketball's finished up a couple of weeks ago. So getting ready to finish the spring and then roll right into the summer and prepare for another, hopefully, great academic year.
Awesome. And then so we'll start diving into your background a little bit. So I was wondering if you could share with me a little bit about your journey to West Alabama and what exactly led you to a career in athletic training.
Perfect. Yeah, my time at UWA goes all the way back to when I was actually an undergraduate student. This is where I attended undergrad, was here 4 years, got my bachelor's in athletic training, graduated May 07 from here, and then went on to Alabama A&M University, where I did a master's degree in counseling psychology. Finished that while I was there. I was a graduate assistant for athletic training, so worked multitude of sports while I was there. I left there and went to Huntington College in Montgomery, Alabama, stayed there 4 years, and August 2014, the opportunity to come back to what was home to me, being West Alabama. There was a position open. I talked to them at conference over the summer. That opportunity was there, and I started back here in August 2014 and have been here ever since.
Awesome. And then so you touched on a little bit about the graduate assistantship that you had at Alabama A&M. So how has that experience prepared you for what you're going through currently at West Alabama, and how that kind of prepare you for some of the real world problems that you kind of get away from just being an intern or in one of those assistantship positions?
Right. So I had been a student. That was my first certified, hey, you're by yourself. This is your team. There were obviously people there as a graduate assistant, just as we are for our graduate assistants and interns here. There's somebody else that you can ask those questions to, but really it was that first time that I'm on the road by myself with that team making all those clinical decisions. So, I mean, you learn by failure, right? So you put into practice. If it doesn't go right, you figure it out, fix it, and move on. And I think that's a lot of what that graduate experience, your first couple of years, truly are. Because you're the one making the decisions when, as a student, there's always somebody right there with you, helping you make those decisions.
Right. And I think that's the biggest thing too, is just like not getting so caught up on your failures and just trying to look at them especially when you're that young, just looking at them as learning experiences. Because if you get so down on yourself that early, you're never going to be able to make it when things inevitably get tougher and tougher.
Right. That's what we tell our students every day now. Like, everything is a learning opportunity. Don't be scared to fail, because failure is normally where you do learn the most.
Right. Exactly. And then, yeah, and just obviously you've been in this field for a while now, and I was just wondering, I've always been kind of curious about this because you always see athletic trainers when they're on the field doing stuff when, unfortunately, if somebody gets hurt. But what does the average day-to-day look like for an athletic trainer that maybe not everybody really knows about?
We're normally the first people here, the last people to leave. We obviously do all the prep. A lot of it is the behind the scenes that people don't see every day. Of course, you're watching TV, you see a big injury happen, person that runs on the field, generally your athletic trainer. But the things they don't see are what happens when they come off the field. What does that rehab look like? We spend a lot of time, obviously, rehabbing to get them back to the field. They need doctor's appointments, imaging, anything like that. We schedule that. A lot of times we are the people that take them to those appointments. Sometimes I joke with our athletes, we spend more time with them than their significant others do. We're with them all the time, know more about them than anyone else, because that is the time that we spend with them. And besides that clinical stuff, there is a lot of administrative duties as far as the paperwork, handling insurance and that type of stuff for those injuries.
Right. And then just following up to that, I think you started to touch on it a little bit, but what are some of the challenges and demands that you guys kind of face on a daily basis?
Across the nation, people will tell you athletic trainers are very short-staffed in most departments. And I think that's true across our conference. At West Alabama, we are very blessed to have a large staff. We still are a few positions not filled right now of full-time faculty and athletic trainers, but many of our schools only have 1 or 2 athletic trainers. So being able to just balance that day-to-day of what that looks like. As I said, we're very blessed at West Alabama. We do have pretty much each athletic trainer has 1 or 2 sports max. And a lot of the schools just aren't able to do that. They don't have the funding for those type positions or just have open positions. As I said, we do. So, for them, a lot of time, when I was in Montgomery at Huntington, I felt like a lot of times being a very short staff, small staff in a lot of sports, I feel like I was more putting out fires than I was able to actually be an athletic trainer. You just wait for the phone call to ring and know where the next place you need to go is. You're not able to be at practices. You're not able to cover everything. You're not able to travel on the road with your teams. And I think that's a lot of what athletic training is facing right now is just there's definitely a shortage of athletic trainers and they're just not able to provide all the things that we would love to for our teams.
Right, absolutely. And then so now just diving a little bit more into your background and just kind of more about athletic training in general. If somebody was looking to get into athletic training, what would you recommend doing to start?
So starting in the fall of 2022, athletic training became a master's only degree.
Okay.
So students that were already enrolled in an undergraduate program were able to continue that program and graduate and be able to sit for their boards. But starting that fall of 2022, it now requires a master's degree. So you can have your undergraduate degree in anything, but I do encourage people looking that want to do into athletic training, get involved as early as you can and get that experience. We get a lot of students that have been with an athletic trainer at their high school. They've done some type of health science class or something with them, or they've helped the athlete trainer at different sports. Or for us here, we do have an undergraduate athletic training degree that doesn't lead to certification, but it does kind of give you classes that prep you to apply to a master's program, whether it be here or another institution. And in those classes, they do take some practicums that they're able to get that real life hands-on experience with athletic trainers. Because a lot of what people don't get is like, hey, that's cool. I see that you run on the field when so-and-so gets hurt, but they don't get the whole aspect of what athletic trainers do. So I think just getting that clinical experience, being able to observe and spend some time with some athletic trainers to see what they really do and see if that's what you want to do is really a foundation before people begin into a program.
Right. And as you started to touch on too, athletic training is so much more than people just running onto the field. So
Right.
what are some of those different pathways that athletic trainers can operate in?
So there's a lot of different settings that people are in. Obviously, people are very familiar with your high school, your collegiate, your professional, because that's who you see. That's what you're used to. But there are a lot of other settings that athletic trainers work in. And probably one of the biggest growing fields right now is the industrial setting. And a lot of athletic trainers are going to that just for a good work-life balance. A lot of our industrial athletic trainers that we know work 4 days a week. They may work 4 tens, but then they have those 3 days off. But some of the bigger industrial settings that people are in right now, Amazon, paper mills, Alabama Power has started hiring athletic trainers. So that's definitely a booming area. It's something that I think we saw a lot of people go to even post-COVID. I know for a lot of athletic trainers, that's a word we don't even like to talk about is COVID and the time of athletics during that. But people found themselves, obviously because athletics weren't happening, going into those other jobs. We have a local mill that we had athletic trainers go just to take temps. And some of them moved into that industrial setting because, again, that work-life balance for athletic trainers. And beyond industrial, there are things people work in hospitals, physicians' clinics, military, there's performing arts. Those are some of your not as well known as far as what athletic trainers do. I said, I think people in general think athletic trainers, athletics. So high school, college, professional, but they don't really know all the opportunities that there are for athletic trainers and where they can go with that degree.
Right. And then you touched on too, like just how crazy COVID was. Specifically for you, what was that like for you? Because you were at West Alabama
Yes.
still. And what was that like for you going through that process? Because I know a lot of athletic trainers during that time were the ones administering the tests and making sure that people are eligible to play, or if did somebody get contact traced, all that stuff. So what was that like? I only went through it as a student, so now it's
Right.
stressful enough. I can't imagine working through that.
A nightmare, to be honest. I was the people swabbing noses. So I wasn't liked by a lot of people at that time. I'm sorry, I'm here for your daily nose swab. But there was a change of schedule all the time. You know, who tested positive, you have to do the contact tracing. You have to, can we play? Do we have enough people to play? And there were rules set out as far as how many people you had to have eligible to play. Doesn't matter who those people were that were out. If you had X number of people, you were still required to play. Obviously, travel was way different, way harder. You couldn't go anywhere when you're on the road. You would go to the hotel, hopefully. Who knows what the hotel situations were. But as far as even eating and your normal travel was very different during that time as far as what you had access to. Obviously, it happened right at the end of basketball season for me. So we were done. So the end of that wasn't so hard. Moving into that next academic year and what everybody's schedules looked like. We didn't even play football that fall. We played football that spring, which obviously presented a whole new challenge as far as what those seasons looked like.
And then I'm assuming too that probably there wasn't a whole lot of work-life balance then. And I know you touched on it a little bit, but
Yeah.
But now you have a lot on your plate. Even before this interview, we're talking about all the different hats you're wearing at West Al right now. So
Right.
how do you maintain a good work-life balance through all of this?
Honestly, it's hard. I will say that it is very hard. And what I've had to tell myself and tell many of our staff is it's okay to say no. I think it's a characteristic of a lot of athletic trainers is that we feel like we need to be available 24/7 and not able to say no. But no is important. I have a no button that sits on my desk and it says no in 100 different ways at you. So however you need to say it that day, you can just hit the no button and it will yell no at you in multiple different ways. But having that ability to say no and know that that's okay. I said we are blessed with a larger staff at West Alabama, and someone could be there, or if not, guess what? Somebody's in the next building and you can call them. And I think that's a lot of times we do try to cover everything, again, because we have that staff. Other schools are not able to. So they're obviously used to being on call a lot more than our coaches and all are, but having a schedule and being able to stick to it. And if you have a plan and something changes, then saying no and finding someone to help cover is acceptable. And I think that's, again, a lot of times just across the board, athletic trainers are known for not knowing how to say no. We feel like if someone needs us, if someone says, hey, I can't do this at this time, can we do it at this time, that we need to accommodate them. And I think hopefully we can teach students that growing up that it's okay to say no and you have to take time for yourself. A lot of times I will tell my students, I teach a psychology class in athletic training, And I tell them, if you don't take care of yourself, then how can you be expected to take care of other people?
Yeah, that's a great mentality too, because like as I was sitting there and thinking, I'm like, oh, it's not necessarily a bad thing that like somebody wants to keep working and keep helping other people. But at the end of the day, you do have to take care of yourself. Like mental health is such a big thing these days. Like you have
Yes.
to be able to take care of yourself.
If you're exhausted and you're not thinking, is your reaction time going to be off and you need to be able to respond in a timely fashion, like you have to be able to take that time to yourself.
Right, exactly, exactly. And now we'll get into a little bit more. So, as we touched on the beginning of the interview, this is National Athletic Training Month. So, I
Yes.
was wondering how important it is to you to be able to celebrate all that. Just even talking right now, where you've talked, we're not just people running onto the field and helping people that are injured. So, how important is it to celebrate this month and all the things that athletic trainers do that people don't see every day?
Right. I think, this year's theme is a champion in healthcare. And I think that can go a long way to say, like, what we do. We are a part of a healthcare team. As you said, it's celebrated every March. And it just really supports the commitment to athletic trainers have to helping people to be able to stay active and do the things that they love. Um, Said we're in a lot of different settings. A lot of times, truthfully, being an athletic trainer is a thankless job. We're the people behind the scenes. They don't see what we're doing every day, but this is a month that we are able to celebrate. If you follow any social media about anything about athletic trainers, people are trying to highlight their athletic trainers this month and just really say thank you and show you what they do. Because we like to be behind the scenes. The things we do don't take the spotlight. If we're in the spotlight, that means someone is injured, and that is where our job comes in. But we like going to practice, going to a game, and not being needed during that whole time is a good day for us. So a bad day for an athlete is a good day for us to have to work, but we don't enjoy that time. We enjoy being behind the scenes and not having that spotlight on us.
Right. And throughout this interview already, you've talked about this, but I was wondering, are there any common misconceptions that people have besides just, you know, thinking that all athletic trainers do is going on to the field and helping people that are hurt?
Right. I actually, when I was looking through the questions, I saw, again, because of it being National Athletic Training Month, there's a lot of social media posts. And I saw one that I thought really kind of helped answer that as far as what people do think. They think we're the people that tape ankles. We hand out water. We'll give you some ice for your injury. If you're cramping, maybe we'll help stretch you. Um, and I think that's a lot of what people think. As far as also, I am in an education setting. So a lot of our students that come in that say, oh, I want to be an athletic trainer, their real perception of what an athletic trainer is really what your strength and conditioning coaches do.
Right.
Um, they find out real quick, they get in a practicum class and like they're coming to work with us every day and they're like, that's not what I thought. I thought I'd be in the weight room helping design weight programs and do that type of stuff. So from the educational side, that's kind of what we see. And then everyday people, obviously just those, again, those are tasks we do, but that's like the tip of the iceberg as far as what we actually do.
Right. Yeah, it's a much more complex field than just all that stuff you just mentioned.
Right. Stand there and hand out some water and hope that's all we have to do. Yes, that's a great day, but there's so much more that we do besides what's actually in the spotlight.
Right, right. And you discussed this a little bit at the beginning of the interview where you were saying how you spend more time with some of the athletes than some people do, or than their significant others do. And so I was wondering if you can explain a little bit about the role that athletic trainers play in the well-being of student athletes after an injury.
Right. We're normally the first one there that is there when they get injured. Um, as long as we're able to travel with them. If not, they're on the road and someone evaluates them and sends them back, and we see them as soon as they get back. So we're there normally from the very beginning, from the time of injury all the way until that return to play, no matter how long that process is. We'll evaluate them. Generally, we're able to diagnose what that injury is. We'll schedule any imaging. If they need surgery, we help schedule that. Again, we do go with them a lot of times to surgery. And then we see them day one after that surgery back to begin that rehab process and are generally there with them that whole time from day one of rehab until the day that we get to be the person standing on the sideline cheering them on when they go back to play. And I would say that's probably one of the greatest blessings as an athletic trainer, is to be able to see that person that got injured, that thought, I'm never going to be able to do this again, go through a full rehab, and then go back to play.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure, because I feel like a lot of it too is you can recover from some of your physical wounds, but it's the mental wounds that kind of last. So if somebody tears their ACL, they're sitting there and they're thinking, well, if I do this movement again, like, is this going to happen?
Yes.
So seeing somebody, it must be so rewarding just seeing somebody who's able to be so resilient and just be able to bounce back and still perform at a high level when they get back onto the field or court or whatever.
Right. And we deal with that mental aspect. There is a level of fear, like, for them going back, but we try to give them small baby steps to get to that big point of doing what it was that caused their injury.
Right.
There are, rehab techniques we can use and all in that step process that will get them to where they're comfortable doing those things and ultimately realize that they're doing that activity without actually realizing that they're going back to that full activity.
Right, right. And then I think that kind of segues into my next question, but I was wondering, has there been an experience during your time at West Al that's kind of changed the way you look at this field?
I don't think so. Not that I can think of right off. I said it's definitely changed. It's manifested into something different as far as what we're able to do, what's expected. You've talked about it. We've mentioned like the mental health aspect of that. But I think a lot of that really changed. Again, not the word that all athletic trainers like to talk about, but post-COVID. Things changed at that point. As far as how people handle things, what they're expecting. I mean, just in college students in general, not even athletes, there's been a change in that. Again, mental health has become, luckily, I think it's a good thing that people are way more comfortable talking about it. But those are things that we deal with way more than I feel like in the past. People are more comfortable with those things. Therefore, it's something that we deal with more often, just because people are more willing to ask for help.
Right, right. And then that kind of brings up the question too, like, do you have, so I know you talked about already too with maintaining the work-life balance, being able to say no, but do you have any advice? This is like sports in general is a very intensive field. You're working long hours, you're working weekends, sometimes you're even working holidays. So some people struggle with that. And again, that's mental health where you're not necessarily taking care of yourself because you're overworking sometimes. So do you have any advice for people who may struggle with how intensive athletic training can be at times?
Find the setting that works well for you. College athletics, professional sports is not for everyone. And I think that's a big thing that education programs now are required to do immersions, meaning that people have to go out and work in those settings for a period of time while they're in school. Some programs did it at an undergraduate level, but it wasn't required. It's now required as part of our accreditation. And I think putting those people in those different settings to see where they will thrive is very beneficial. So like our students here do 2 different immersions. We let them choose the type of settings they want to go to. We do require them to do 2 different ones. But I think people, through even like their clinical experiences that we require in the program, aside from their immersions, are exposed to those different settings. And you're just able to kind of see, they all do varsity athletics here, so they see that college athletics, but they're able to pick other settings also and just get a feel and see what works best for them. We have a group right now that's very interested in, again, that industrial setting, which is a new booming area for athletic trainers. And a lot of it is because of like work-life balance and the opportunities they have to have what would be a more normal schedule to people.
Right. We can now dive into some fun rapid fire questions to wrap this one up.
All right.
And so I was wondering if you could work any sporting event, what would you want to work in?
Well, I primarily work men's basketball now, so I did not have a love for basketball previously. I tried playing 1 year in high school because I was tall. Wasn't really my thing. I did it because they asked me to. My love of a sport itself is volleyball.
Okay.
I played in high school. I played club ball. So it would have to be some type of a volleyball event.
Okay, would you ever want to be at like work in the Olympics or something like that with Olympic volleyball or anything like that?
Sure.
Okay. I mean, it's your dream. You could choose whatever you want to
Yeah,
do.
for that time period, I don't know that I want to do that high level all the time, but
Right.
for Olympic period, sure. Because I said volleyball is one of my true passions.
Awesome, awesome. And then, so this is something I've always been curious about, but I know like there's a reaction channel I used to watch on YouTube where like they were watching like Marvel movies and it was like the guy was a nurse and he's like, that medic scene in Doctor Strange, like it makes zero sense. So, what is the least accurate athletic training scene you've seen in a movie or a TV show?
Ooh, I don't know. That's hard. I can't say I'm a great movie buff, so um anything that you like walk in and there's really blood squirting everywhere and that's not real life. Maybe once in a blue moon, but that's not normally your everyday what you see as far as athlete training. Those are your once in a lifetime maybe that you have like those grotesque injuries that people display happen all the time. Hopefully they're not all the time. They're your once in a lifetime situation.
Right, right. And then, so I'm sure you've gotten to travel plenty, whether it be in your grad experience and now being at West Al. So do you have a favorite travel story during this period you've been at West Al or just in general?
Probably my favorite trip was actually my first year I was back at West Alabama. Again, working men's basketball, I look at the schedule. I came in with a whole new coaching staff, so we all came in together. The old coach had made the schedule. I look at the schedule once they post it. We're going to Alaska. I think is a mistake. I'm like, this has to be Arkansas, not Alaska, right? We're confused. But that was probably one of the best trips we had just because it was somewhere different experience. We did get to like do some sightseeing, do activities while we're there. And it's not somewhere that you get to go all the time.
Yeah, for sure. I've never been to Alaska before. I know like
Right.
next to nothing about there. So that must have been an incredible experience though.
Right. A good trip. I said, just not somewhere you get to go all the time. Obviously, your championship seasons are fun when you get to travel and do NCAA tournament and those type of things. Those have been fun. But as far as best location, I would have to go that first season that I was convinced it had to be a misprint that we weren't going to Alaska, but we did. Over like Thanksgiving break, it was a good time. My other,
Sure.
I guess, fun travel, I traveled with our women's basketball team one year. Even though I didn't primarily work women's basketball, I went that year just because they were going to Puerto Rico. So that was another Thanksgiving tournament. I guess the Thanksgiving tournaments are where we get to go fun places. But again, somewhere I'd just never been. And obviously just the types of gyms and the different things you do in Puerto Rico were unique.
Right, for sure, for sure. Well, Joni, thank you so much for joining me today. I feel like I've been enlightened because I will say I was one of the people that did not know much about athletic training. And so I feel enlightened. I feel like I've learned something and learned some common misconceptions. So I appreciate you coming on for National
Absolutely.
Athletic Training Month and teaching me something new. And I hope everybody else that's listening to this was able to learn as well. So I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much. So I appreciate the opportunity.
I hope you all enjoyed our interview today. Remember to like, share, and subscribe wherever content can be found. Stay tuned for what we have in store next time on Inside the GSC.